What up, what up? This is COGIC. Back into the video. So the title of this video is going to be the reason why I left the COGIC church. So admin notes, thanks again to all subscribe to the channel. I endeavor to keep pushing the video out. Give you leverage, better yourselves. So let's get into it. So the reason why I left the COGIC church, or should I say reasons, but there was one particular reason why, but I'm gonna get into that later on in the video. So I'm not gonna make this video really long. The reason why I'm making this video is because I'm an official YouTuber now, right? Obviously, I have enough subscribers where I can kind of claim myself to be a YouTuber. And one thing I found out when it comes to being a YouTuber, especially if you want to keep your fan base and to keep folks following you, you have to go with the trends. You have to go with what is hot as far as like what you put out there in the space. And what I mean by that is that, any video that I have this has like over 1,000 views, 2,000 views, 3,000 views, then I kind of like stay with that particular niche for a little bit to see if anybody else can gain some knowledge and actually be helped when it comes to those videos. So the last video I did that actually garnered a lot of views was the video that I titled why the black men don't attend church. I believe that's what the title is. And that video right now is sitting at 2.2 thousand views. So I'm going to keep that same energy and go into some other things when it comes to the church. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to explain my actual journey through the COGIC church, and then I'm gonna get into real quick the reason why I wound up leaving. So I wasn't raised in church. We went to church. My mom and my grandmother raised me, and we went to church during Easter, right? We went to church anytime. I think that my grandmother felt like we was actually going down the wrong path, and she wanted to bring us back into the right path. I don't necessarily consider myself a bad child when I was growing up, but we was raised in the projects, and there was a lot of things going on, just like any other person that has been raised in the projects. Like it's, your parents can try to hide you from things, but there's just certain things you're just not gonna be able to be shielded from. So, like I said, I could probably count on one or two hands every single year as I was growing up how many times we actually went to church. But my wife was raised in the church. She was raised in the COGIC church. Ever since she can remember, she was raised in that church. So she has some deep-rooted background when it comes to the COGIC church. And I knew this before I got married to my wife, and it wasn't a big deal. I attended church numerous times with her before we got married. And I'm not gonna lie, when I first attended a COGIC church, it was definitely eye-opening. I had not seen church ran that way as far as like, folks being slain in the spirit, people speaking in tongues, folks running around in church dancing. I wasn't raised in a church, but the church we did go to was a Baptist church. It was I guess, quote unquote, a traditional Baptist church. It was mainly black, but you didn't hear a lot of hooting and hollering. Nobody was running around. Nobody was screaming. It was very organized and almost quiet to a certain degree. But COGIC church is not like that, right? So over the years we've been married. I've been married for about 20 years now. We've gone to different churches, different COGIC churches, because we've been in the military. We had to, anytime we left and went to another state or another country, we had to, find another church. And for the most part, we've actually tried to stick with COGIC. And one of the reasons why is because my wife was raised in COGIC. I felt at the time that it benefited the family as a whole that we stayed in that space when it comes to religion. When it comes to being a part of that particular church, because I didn't want my wife to be in a church that she felt uncomfortable or she couldn't get the spirit. And for myself, I had to create a relationship with God and with Jesus later on, because attending church the first couple of years that me and my wife was together, I really went to church only because of her, honestly. And I'm not saying I didn't like going to church. I'm just saying that because of me not being able to get really into the COGIC church, it was one of those things that, my wife was raised in the church and I didn't want to take her away from church. So even though I wasn't feeling it, she was, right? So it didn't, at some point, it really didn't matter to me. The reason why I went to church was really the reason was because of my wife being raised in COGIC, and I wanted her to be in a comfortable environment for her. But as the years went on, I established a relationship with God, and the COGIC church didn't bother me anymore. It really didn't. But I will say there have been some things, a part of the COGIC church that not necessarily bother me, but it was just one of those things like it didn't sit with me. It didn't sit right with me. As far as like speaking in tongues, according to doctrine, I mean, somebody can correct me on it, but according to doctrine, when it comes to the COGIC church, yeah, it's one of those things that you're not truly saved unless you actually speak in tongues. And they derive that from scripture in the Bible. And it's one of those things like, I mean, if somebody doesn't speak in tongues, I mean, are they not going to heaven? Like, there's so many other things I can get into when it comes to the COGIC church that just didn't sit right with me. But and before I left the church, this particular church, I was a deacon in the church. So like I said, I mean, it wasn't, these things wasn't enough for me to leave at the time. But I mean, once again, there was still a lot of things about the COGIC church that I really didn't understand and really couldn't get with. But at the end of the day, it's all about saving souls. So I can look past a lot of those things. Because at the end of the day, if a soul was saved, that's all I was concerned about. Like, because the thing is, because you have other, I guess, sects of Christianity. And, it's one of those things like, I guess, depending on what sect you are when it comes to Christianity, I guess they feel like that they're the true path to Jesus and the true path to God when it comes to, being Lutheran, being a Jehovah's Witness, being Catholic. And, who's to say who's right? We all have one common goal, is to get to heaven. At least that's what I believe it is when it comes to Christianity, right? We want to see Jesus, we want to get to heaven. So I don't really, that really didn't bother me when it comes to like how COGIC doctrine was scripted, because at the end of the day, like I said, it's all about saving souls. So that's a brief backdrop when it comes to my navigation through the COGIC church. Now, let me get into the reason why I wound up leaving. So, once again, there was a couple things that didn't sit right with me, but I overlooked a lot of those things. But there was an incident that happened in the church. Well, actually, it didn't happen inside the church. It happened outside of the church. It involved a family member of mine and another member of the church. So, two parishioners to go to the church. So, like I said, I'm a leader in the church. I was a deacon. And the other person that was in the church that this incident happened, one of their family members was a leader in the church as well. So you got two leaders that have family members that actually had an incident that needed to be addressed. It was serious enough to where authorities had to be involved. So myself and the other person that was a leader of the church went to the pastor, and we sat down and talked about it. And the pastor wound up talking to the authorities, and the authorities pretty much told him that he needed to be neutral because he was in charge of the church, and he had to be impartial when it came to both parties, which I understood. I definitely didn't want the pastor to get in type of any legal trouble because of the incident that happened, because I wasn't in trouble, and the person that was a leader in the church wasn't in trouble either. It was our family members that were there that had this incident. So I'm not going to say the names, obviously, and I'm not going to say the church name or anything like that because I want to keep everybody protected, because this video is not about me calling out anybody. It's about me explaining the reason why I left COGIC, and to help somebody. Not to help somebody leave COGIC, but to give them perspective as to why I left. And you might be going through the same situation. So anyways, long story short, the incident was kind of overlooked to a certain degree. The pastor became very standoffish. The incident wound up going under the wayside. And the incident was an incident, and like I said, I can't get into details because I want to keep everybody protected. But the incident was an incident where the families could not be in the same vicinity with each other. So at one point, it was almost at a point where like we came as a family to the church, and then the other family stayed home. It's crazy, right? We're in church and we have to be separate. It's kind of crazy, right? So After a certain point, the pastor pretty much told the other family members, the other family, like, hey, y'all been away from church too long. It's time for y'all to come back. And I told the pastor, I'm like, hey, we can't be in the same space, you know, and if we can't be, and if they come back, we gotta leave. And he really didn't address it. It was almost like, you know, well, if you decide to do that, then, you know, whatever. Now, I'm not saying the pastor actually felt that way or said that. I'm just saying, like, that's the way it came off to me, because there was no leadership intervention when it came to that. He gave some ideas for like how we could be in the same space, but they didn't work. You know, church is an institution where folks hug each other all the time. They greet each other. So for us to be families in the same church would be actually like separate. Like that would be impossible. It'd be crazy, because we're supposed to be in church as a family, not as a separate entity, right? So it just wouldn't work. So I made a decision for my family that we was going to leave. And we're a part of another church right now, and it's not a COGIC church. It's not a non-denominational church. And because of this incident, and because of some of the things that I have seen in the COGIC church, I do not believe that I will ever be in the COGIC church ever again. And my wife is on board. Even though she was raised in the church, she's on board with it. Now, that's not to say that we wouldn't attend a COGIC church for like being a visitor, being a guest, or anything like that. But we as a family don't feel like that we need to be in that environment anymore. Now, like I said, it's not a video to convince somebody to leave COGIC. Not saying it at all. I'm giving awareness to this because a lot of folks will stay in a church environment and they're not being fed. Because it may be a situation where their family is Lutheran, their family is Methodist. So because it was raised this way, they would feel ostracized by going to another Christian church. And you got to build a personal relationship with God yourself. They can't do it for you, right? So if you're a part of it, and I'm just making an example of this, if you are a part of a COGIC church and you're not being fed, then you need to leave. Don't worry about your family. Don't worry about the pastor saying that you need to stay and kind of work things out. If you're not being fed, and you don't, and you're not in a situation to where you feel the presence of God in your life, then you need to find a church that you have that connection with. And for myself and my wife, we find a connection with the church we are part of right now. And you know, and the thing is that, you know, the incident, you know, causes leave the church, but you know, the thing is that, you know, when it comes to church, when it comes to anything in life, we are human. Nobody's perfect. So like I said, there's a lot of things that are overlooked in the church because, you know, nobody's perfect. The pastor's not perfect. The pastor is just another person trying to get to heaven just like I am, right? So there was so my pastor wasn't perfect. The church leader were not perfect. The adults in the church were not perfect. The kids were not perfect. Nobody's perfect. So I can look over human fallacies when it comes to the church. What I could not overlook was leadership not being accountable for certain things. That's why I couldn't overlook. And I've seen this happen in the COGIC church a couple of times before, but it didn't happen to me or my family members. It happened to other folks. And I'm sitting here like, this environment is one of these environments where, like, if somebody does something crazy, like, they just sweep it under the rug and it's not addressed. And I'm like, I guess it's one of those mentalities like God's gonna work it out. I don't know, y'all. But I've seen this in the COGIC church so many times where people have done crazy stuff. And if it's from a church leader, it's the church leader is protected, and the person that was violated is not protected. And I can't get with that. I just can't. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying this is a part of church as a whole, but in the COGIC church, I've seen this numerous times. Like I said, it wasn't until it happened to my family, and I'm not saying my family was violated. I'm just saying the incident was a situation where it should have been addressed a lot more thoroughly by the church leadership and the pastor, and it wasn't. And I couldn't get with that. I just couldn't, you know, because like I said, we all human. We're not perfect, but that was something I could not look past. So anyways, you know, that's the reason why I left the COGIC church. I hope and pray that whoever's watching this video seeks a relationship with God if they haven't already, to have discernment. And once again, it's not a video to sway somebody from not attending a COGIC church or being a part of COGIC. But what I will say is that you need to seek God for yourself, and you cannot seek God based off a family tradition. Because I think a lot of black folks in the black community will keep going to a church because the family has been going to this church. And your family can't save you, right? You have to have a discernment. You have to seek a relationship with God on your own terms, not from your family's terms. So anyway, peace and blessings to everybody. I hope this video helps somebody. If you want me to discuss a subject or a topic you think beneficial to your channel, email me at findingfitnessfolk@gmail.com. My email address is in the description below. Say so, G, signing out. I'm gone.